Welcome to Eat, Sleep, Wine, Repeat, a podcast for all you wine lovers who, if you're like me, just cannot get enough of the good stuff. I'm Janina, your host, brand ambassador, wine educator, and sommelier. So stick with me as we dive deeper into this ever-evolving, wonderful world of wine. And wherever you are listening to this, cheers to you. Hello, wine friends, and welcome to another episode as we head to California. I am joined today by Paige Comrie, the creator behind Wine With Paige on Instagram, who is very much the wine storyteller. Like me, Paige was also nominated for the IWSC, so the International Wine and Spirit Competition's Emerging Talent in Wine Communication Award. So expect a lot of storytelling in this episode, and we will deep dive into California's hidden wine gems, Lodi, Murphy's, and Amador, the spots that don't always get the love that Napa does, but you will soon find out totally should. And of course, we cannot talk about these regions without talking about Zinfandel, the soul of many a vineyard here, and not just any grape variety, but this is heritage, having come to California in the early 1850s, and you'll also learn of the significant connection Zinfandel has to the California gold rush. But before we start, here is your wine fact of the episode. We talk about White Zinfandel in this episode, but do not fully go into detail as to how it was created, which was by accident. In 1975, the winemaker, Bob Trinchero of Sutter Home Winery, he was trying to make a dry rosé. So this wine was originally called Œil de Perdrix, Eye of the Partridge, but the batch experienced a stuck fermentation. So that meant that the yeast stopped converting the sugar to alcohol way too early. This left residual sugar in the wine, and it resulted in a sweeter, lighter pink wine that was very different from your traditional dry red Zinfandel. But instead of discarding the batch, he bottled it, and the wine quickly gained serious popularity for the fact that it was just really approachable and super, super fruity. So this accidental discovery turned into a humongous commercial success by the 1980s, making White Zinfandel one of America's leading wines. But most importantly, it actually rescued many an old vine Zinfandel vineyard that may have otherwise been uprooted due to the fact that demand for traditional red Zinfandel was just not really happening. So we can thank old Bob and his stuck ferment for many an old vine still happily living in Californian soils. Now, just as a side note, if you're enjoying the show and have not left a review or comment yet, it will mean the world. It really helps boost the podcast and gets it in front of more wine lovers like you. So please, if you have a spare moment, do pop across to your podcast app and have a little type. But for now, pour yourself a glass of, well, Zinfandel and enjoy the episode. Okay, Paige, I'm going to ask you straight away. Now, you told me that neither of your parents drank wine, so they didn't introduce this to you. So how did you find yourself falling down this grape-soaked rabbit hole of yours?
Well, I was freshly 21, living in Michigan, doing a business program at the University of Michigan. And I'm very much like a both sides of my brain person. Like, I love business, but I love being creative. And I honestly felt really out of place in the business school, though, because it was very, very analytical. And it seemed like everyone in the program had parents who came from like a business, finance, entrepreneurial background. But my parents are a pilot and a teacher. They don't drink wine. They're very like humble Midwest people. And yeah, I felt very out of place. I was like, how can I fit in better in the business world? And the two things that came to mind were wine and golf. But it was December in Michigan, so I was not about to go golfing. So I picked up Wine for Dummies over Christmas break, and I just absolutely devoured the book. I fell in love. I thought it was such an interesting topic. And then I picked up every single other book my library had on wine, took them home, just absolutely became obsessed with it.
Now, I remember you said to me that you had this project. So whilst you were reading all of these books, was it Wine Folly? I've forgotten already.
Yeah, Wine Folly.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think everyone listening, Wine Folly as a book, if you're really getting into wine, many people have mentioned this. It's a fantastic, because it's so visual, isn't it? The colours, the charts. But you started this project of focusing on the 18 noble varieties and food pairings. Is that right?
Yeah, so the idea with the 18 noble varieties is that if you taste through them all, they categorically give you a good overview of what every wine in the world is, because they all fit into one of these 18 categories. So each week I would go to the wine shop on campus, talk to the guy there, pick up a bottle that he said was descriptive and similar to what that variety should be. I would take it home, read my Wine Folly, probably reference a couple other books, and make a meal to pair with it. And I'd just be a whole nerd. It was like a me date night. And it was really fun. It was a really good way to get really personal with wine, especially as somebody who didn't know anything coming into it.
I think that is such a good point. So now this is something I don't know. I haven't actually gone through Wine Folly. So they've listed what they think are the 18 noble varieties. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So that is, and obviously we know the international varieties. It's going to be covering Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Riesling, Pinot Grigio. And obviously, what's that? Another 15 more or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's saying, Madeline, who wrote this book, Wine Folly, that if you taste these 18 varieties, you're basically going to have gone through that whole spectrum of probably light and crisp to aromatic to full and textural. Is that kind of what she's saying?
Yeah, basically. And so, you might not be able to try all there's thousands of grape varieties.
Of course.
But if you understand what a crisp mineral white wine is supposed to be like, you kind of have the language to describe any of those wines that fall in the category.
And also, I suppose for anybody who's oh, actually, I do like this Pinot Grigio from Veneto. It's oh, what else is a light crisp wine? Oh, well, maybe Gavi from the Piemonte region. Okay, so now I'm going to try that. So once you kind of also lock on to what style of wine actually you enjoy the most, then you can start exploring further, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then getting even more nerdy.
I love it. That is honestly, when you told me about this, I was we have to talk about this. In fact, I think if you've been drinking lots of wine in general, many people they say the average consumer only ever tastes 6 different grapes in their whole life.
That makes me sad.
Me too.
I wonder if that's changing with younger millennials and Gen Z who are more experiential and adventurous. I think it's still scary when you see something you don't know on a wine list, but I don't know. I'm more apt to order. I order the weird esoteric things, but I also obviously know wine.
I think you're right. It definitely will be changing because it's that older generation that they will buy their claret. And if you think about it, if you don't know anything about wine, you always stick with what you know, because why would you want to spend money if it might go wrong?
Yeah.
But definitely now I think the younger generation, if the bottle looks quite funky, they might give it a go, with orange wines becoming more kind of out there. But either way, I think for an average consumer who has tasted even maybe more than 6 varieties, actually focusing in on the 18 noble, that's going to probably really center them and make them feel very like a really good wine confidence course.
Yeah. And it's self-paced and it's fun because you're drinking wine. And I just literally would nerd out. And I think I did a couple different apps on my phone at the time that I would reference too. So it's Wine Folly, these apps. you could Google it now. ChatGPT probably could tell you even more about each grape that you're drinking. But yeah, just getting nerdy and being curious. Curiosity in the world of wine is rewarded.
I love that. So when you were doing that and you were taking 1 or 2 of your noble varieties and doing food pairings, are there any that blew your mind that you still remember now today?
So I was living in a dorm, so I couldn't actually cook. It was a lot of
Oh no, was it pot? Don't tell me it was pot noodles with Riesling.
Similar or on par though. What Panda Express, their orange chicken paired with Gewürztraminer is
beautiful.
So good. It's just such a beautiful pairing because that's so rich and fatty and oily, and then the crisp cleanness of the wine paired with like that bright fruit, like those lychee notes that you get in Gewurz. Oh, just such a beautiful pairing.
Yum. I mean, honestly, this is the thing. You just need wine to help it, to bring you joy.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. Wine brings you joy. Let's segue that. What were you doing rolling down a hill at Opus One? Tell us about that. And also, Opus One is such a prestigious estate in Napa. Do they let you roll down hills?
They didn't say no.
Never ask for permission, everyone. Beg for forgiveness. This is something my brother taught me when I was very little.
This is definitely my life philosophy. So I was working in corporate at the time. I worked for Walmart e-commerce. I used to manage their video game hardware for .com.
Okay.
Very different
Very
world.
different.
Very different life. But my manager at the time was very bougie, and he took our team to Napa for a team weekend. And Opus was one of the stops. We were I think it was our last stop of the day, to be honest. So we had a lot of wine
spitting.
at that point. No, because we weren't driving. None of us worked in wine. The idea of spitting wine at that time was very new to me. So yeah, very wine soaked. And I'm pretty sure it was my idea. I'm pretty sure I was like, I want to roll down that hill. And my manager was like, if you do, I'll buy you a bottle of wine. And I was like, this is a win-win. And so me and one of my coworkers, because he obviously wanted a bottle of wine too, ran up to the top of the hill and rolled our way down. And that video still lives on my Instagram today. Sometimes I wait for someone to bring it up because I think it's such a funny, the fact that now I'm a very serious wine professional.
We should never be serious wine professionals. That's why we're in wine. Honestly, though, when you mentioned about that, I was like, let's talk about it for a second, because I genuinely, anybody listening, they probably assume that I don't always take things seriously. I am at the grand old age of 38, and I can tell you I rolled down a hill only 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I love that. I think
not
we
on a
need
winery,
to roll down more hills.
It's fun. It's very freeing, and wine advice, life advice, it's all here in this podcast. We need to release the inner child that is screaming to get out. Life is serious enough.
Play. Bring play into life.
So you're now, funny enough, after visiting Napa, after being in the corporate world, you now live in Napa.
Yes. Yeah.
But I told you that we can't spotlight it. Sorry, done that a few times.
That's okay. As much as I love it, I love other places too.
Well, so I said to you that what other regions could we talk about and bring to the listeners that perhaps are lesser known and that deserve a light to be shone? And you said, well, what did you say?
Well, I suggested a lot of things, I'm pretty sure, but the one that stuck was talking about Lodi, Murphy's, and Amador County. Three very off the beaten path California wine regions. There's over 100 AVAs, American viticultural areas, in California alone, which is crazy. There's just so much good wine here, and those kind of all have a theme that run through them, so that could be fun to talk about together.
What's the theme, Paige? Tell us what the theme of these three regions is.
Old Vine Zinfandel.
Oh, yes. And again, for anybody who has been following me on my wine journey, old vines are something that I find so magical, so deeply connective with nature. There is something so iconic about standing in an old vine vineyard, and then let alone the concentration and this minerality that I always seem to get from old vine wines, regardless of what grape variety. So tell me about, where do we start? I guess Lodi. Am I right? Lodi has got the most old vine Zinfandel out of these three, actually out of California, right?
Yeah. And of the three, it's the largest in terms of wineries too. But I feel like Lodi and Old Vine Zin are very synonymous, iconic, tied together.
And I think it would probably be quite surprising for many people who know Napa, Sonoma, Paso Robles, that Lodi makes, I think, 20% of all of California's wine, way more than Napa and Sonoma put together, right?
Yeah. It's more valley floor. There's more land for vines. The vines produce more fruit, which is why it is, I will say, a hit or miss type place when you're going wine tasting there. Because there is a lot of bulk wine that comes out of there. So that's, I think, also why people are more familiar with the region, because it does end up in grocery store wines.
But I also think that actually certainly I can talk about in the UK, we have a supermarket called Waitrose, and they have like old Wine Zinfandel for £15. They've had this, like the same wine for 10 years or so, and it's actually fantastic value, to think like, what's that, about $20. So, if you find, like you said, I suppose if you find the right winery, well, who would you highlight as maybe the most iconic wineries making old vines in that people should maybe put to their list, but also maybe some surprise great value wineries or boutique wineries that are like doing some really exciting things?
Ooh. Not in Lodi, but over in Murphy's is Ironstone Vineyards. And they make great old vines in. They're a larger producer, but fantastic wine. Still a very high focus on quality. You'll find them in grocery stores too, so easy to find.
They're in the UK.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, they distribute.
And then, so they're one of the big ones, I guess, iconic in terms of the fact that you can find it everywhere. But I don't even know really specifically their price points for their whole range.
Yeah, I don't know either off the top of my head. I want to say that they make a good range of wines, though. Like, I think they have very approachable, like, everyday bottles that are probably around, like, the 15, 20-ish. Don't quote me on that. I mean, and then I think they have some higher end stuff that is higher tier price, too.
Well, okay. So you actually took me to Murphy's as a winery. It's all right. Listen. This podcast is not about systems and being systematic here. We are here to jump all over the place and bring it all together at the end. So Lodi is in the Central Valley of California. How does somebody get there? What's the nearest airport? Like, these are places that you think are really worth going to visit, right? Not just taste the wine. If you can fly to California, these are places that people should have on their list, right?
Yeah, they're really cute. Really fun places to visit. So all of them, you would fly into the Sacramento airport because they're all just east of Sacramento. I think Lodi would be the closest, and then you start getting into the Sierra foothills, and that's when you get to Murphy's, and then you keep going and you get to Amador County.
Okay. Now, Murphy's, I have to say, I know nothing about, which is interesting because I know that Ironstone is in the UK. I've seen it. I'm sure I must have tried it at some point, but I'm aware they're here. But I had no idea they were in Murphy's. And when you talk, this is the smallest out of the three, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about
Murphy's is a city or town.
Right.
I don't know if you'd call it a city. Town within Calaveras County, which is within the Sierra foothills area.
Okay. So I looked it up. Is it like cellar door after cellar, like a long road of just amazing cellar doors and like wine bars? It just like wine vibe town.
So it's a very small town, very small little town, very cute, quaint, off the beaten path. I think a lot of people end up there if they're driving from like San Francisco to Tahoe, like weekend destination, right? So they end up there along the way. But it's just this really cute town with a lot of boutique wineries. Downtown is like one street, and it has, a bunch of different wineries, boutiques, like little art galleries that you can go to. And then there's a few like wineries dotting like the countryside that you can go to too.
So in general, the joy of going to Murphy's is more like downtown, eat, drink, get involved in the wine scene without vineyards as much, whereas if you were to
there still are a few, but yeah, it's more of like that cute little urban, like downtown, very small town California with this like really interesting vibe because it's all like gold rush era, so it feels very like saloony.
Okay.
I don't know, it's very cute, especially being someone, I'm not from California originally, I'm from the Midwest, and so there's just something about the energy there and like the charm, the history, that's really cool.
And do you think so all of wine regions are influenced by the gold rush of the 1800s? But it sounds to me like Murphy's has maybe that more, you feel the history more? Would you say
Murphy's and
that's true?
Amador both, definitely.
Okay.
Lodi is more modern, more of a farming community, more modern, bigger downtown, more to do in general. Whereas Murphy's and Amador are just like these super like off the beaten path type places.
Well, Amador, apparently, I mean, of course, I did do my research. I'm going to pretend like I knew it all in advance. I didn't. Is actually the first wine trail of California, which I was quite impressed about. Like, talking about history, how cool to go to the first place where they focused on planting vines.
Yeah. And I mean, tying it back to the gold rush, like obviously a lot of people like rushed to California for the gold, hence the name. And then they realized they couldn't, like that there wasn't gold to be found. And so then they settled down, they planted farms. A lot of them came from Italian heritage. And so in addition to Zinfandel, you find a lot of like Italian varieties, especially like Sangiovese.
Nice. Okay. Would you say that Sangiovese are we talking about across all three, or are we talking about Amador is where Sangiovese seems to be doing well?
Amador and Murphy's.
Okay. Interesting.
Lodi honestly seems like it can grow most things. Like it just has a very fertile climate.
Well, the fact that as well that it's so large and there's like 7 sub AVAs within that region, quite clearly it allows for the 100+ varieties that it can plant, right?
Yeah.
So when I was also doing my research, and feel free to add to it, and I'm going to look at my paper right now, the oldest documented Zinfandel vineyard in California is in Amador, and it was planted in 1869, called the original Grand Pere, I'm not sure, Grand Pere vineyard. So quite clear that would be incredible by any chance, have you been in that vineyard? Did you stand in that vineyard?
I have not. I was stood in some old vineyards, but not that one.
Oh, how old did they go back to? I mean, did they tell you? Did they know exactly how old? I mean,
a lot of them do go back to like the early 1900s, late 1800s, which is just like so cool. And you see those like old gnarly vines, and they're so like thick and like you can tell they have stories. It's so cool. I love old vines too.
Well, I think as well, and again, tell me if there's anything different about Murphy's, but certainly in Lodi, there's a lot of sandy soil. There's a lot of volcanic soil in Amador, for sure. So those two soils are fantastic for effectively stopping phylloxera, the evil louse that travels through the soils, eats the roots and damages the vines. And so for the fact that, obviously, one, I think people and the farmers have really taken care of their vines and their land, but the fact that really phylloxera finds it very hard to survive in these soils, it's become an amazing area for old vines to just establish and stay and grow, and right?
Yeah, it's so cool that they can do that. I'm pretty sure it's the same in like Murphy's and Amador too.
Yeah. And of course, so do you feel when you were going across these 3 regions, did they have different vibes from each other? Or do you really feel collectively they're very similar? I guess they've all got Mediterranean climates, really warm during the day, mountain range bringing down cool breezes. Do you feel the same similar senses across the 3?
I'd say Lodi kind of sits by itself in this category because it is more valley floor. It is more of like very much a farming community in that place. I mean, there's so many vineyards and so many wineries, so very much a farming community. Whereas Murphy's and Amador do have a lot more like overlap and similarities in terms of vibe, especially with that like gold rush era, like architecture and being like very small towns with like very limited curated things to do. Yeah, so I'd feel like there's 2 categories within them.
I love that. And I imagine as well, though, with something like Amador, with the Sierra Nevada, and I suppose also the Tahoe Mountains, that I guess, are they always covered in snow, or just certain times? That's got to be a beautiful vista. I don't know, looking on most of the vineyards, there's got to be that backdrop. Or am I just imagining that because I saw it on a map?
No, there's definitely that backdrop. I'm trying to imagine if there's always snow. I don't think there's always snow on top. I don't think they're quite high enough for that, so no. But it is definitely a beautiful backdrop. And like when you get over to like Murphy's, you get a lot more of like these like oak tree forests that are really beautiful. I mean, like rolling hills, you start getting hillier. Again, Lodi's kind of flat. At least the places I've been seem much flatter. Murphy's and Amador, you get more of the rolling hills. You get that like mountain vista. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
To answer the question. I feel like I forgot where we were going.
Welcome to my life. So we talked about Zinfandel. We've said Zinfandel. For someone who has never tasted this grape variety, how would you describe it to somebody?
Yeah, well, I feel like there's two factions, right? Like we're talking about old vine Zin, which is like this special category that's, I mean, with older vines, they concentrate the flavors. It's smaller production, smaller yields. And so you get these really concentrated, like rustic berry flavors. Whereas like a Napa cab tends to be more polished, more bright fruit. It's still like dark but bright at the same time. With old vines in, you also tend to get more of those like baking spices that shine through and softer tannins. It just has like such a beautiful mouthfeel. It's very different. I feel like Zinfandel is hard. For a long time, I didn't think I liked it because I had only had certain types. And then I had my first old vine Zin, which I'm pretty sure was from Ironstone. And it changed my life. It was beautiful.
Wow. Okay. They get everybody. Right. Ironstone mentioned twice now. But yeah, it's obviously, and it tends to be a pretty high alcohol grape variety. So if anyone's looking for 12.5, like you're not going to like that with Zinfandel. But it gives you that power, that mouthfeel, that it's really full, beautiful, powerful fruits, I always think. And like you just said, like this, the baking spices. I always get even sometimes a little raisin nature, almost a bit of dried fruit character in there. But I think that's a mixture of one, the heat, and two, sometimes the grape varieties, the berries actually can be slightly different sized. But yeah, I think Zinfandel, it's such a wonderful, almost like voluptuous, very giving grape variety. We actually should probably point out for anybody who is thinking, why the hell are we talking about like black fruits and spices when they may think that Zinfandel is a rosé?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I had a friend whose mom loved White Zinfandel, and so she was really confused when I kept talking about Zinfandel as a red wine. It just really threw her.
Yeah. So for Sutter Home were the winery that created White Zinfandel by accident, which is just hilarious considering it is now one of the most drunk wine styles of the world. Where are they?
They're in Napa. They still have one of the last free tastings in Napa.
One of the free tastings?
Yes.
Oh. So
I think there's honestly like 3 wineries in Napa that do free tastings, and they're one of them.
Oh my God. So, okay, screw these 3 regions that we're talking about. Back to Napa. If you go there, what do you get for your free tasting?
Oh, it's been a minute since I went, to be honest. The last time I went was probably 2018, so pre-pandemic, and we know everything shifted. But when I went, it was really, honestly, I thought it was a cool experience, especially, again, being from the Midwest. Like, I recognized very few labels at the beginning of my wine journey, but Sutter Home is iconic. And so the tasting room is actually right next to the house, and the house is on the label. So it was really cool to see the house. We tasted through a whole bunch of sweet and off-dry wines. I think they had a chocolate pairing at the end for one of them. It was fun. Yeah, it was fun, especially, honestly, it's interesting because I get a lot of DMs from people who are visiting Napa, and they're like, oh, we only like sweet wines. And I'm like, oh, you're in the wrong place. Napa mostly makes dry cab, but they're Sutter Home. They make sweet wine.
So, okay. Interesting then, because I've not been to any of these wine regions that we're talking about. What is the average price of a wine tasting in Napa Valley? If you can, I appreciate that might be a little bit difficult. I said average. Let's see where you go with that. Compared to wine tastings in Lodi, in Murphy's, in Amador.
I'd say the average in Napa is probably around 75 now. It's pretty high, but most of them are seated experiences. Whereas in these other 3 places, Lodi, Murphy's, Amador County, it's much more grassroots, down home. You're going to find free tastings. You're going to find $10, $15 tastings. Most of them will be waived if you buy wine or join the wine club. And I think what's really cool about these like off the beaten path places is that when you're in Napa, you're tasting usually there's a staff of like 5 or 6 plus people who work there. You don't meet the winemaker, you don't meet the owner. When you're off the beaten path, when you're over in these places, you are tasting with the winemakers, the owners, like people who are directly involved in the production of the wine and the brand's story. And so it's so much more personable.
And I would imagine right now in Napa, from what I've heard, really, especially if you want to go to the main famous wineries, you need to book. You cannot just turn up. Whereas if you go to Lodi, just rock up, have a taste, do what you want, enjoy yourself, right? There's a lot more freedom.
It's much more casual. Yeah. In general, it's much more casual. You can pop into most wineries without an appointment. Decide where you're going, ask for advice on where to go next, see where the day takes you.
That's really nice. Yeah. So Napa Valley is known for the glamour. It's polished. There's how many Michelin star restaurants? 5 in Napa? Something.
Yeah, something like that. And then even more Michelin reviewed.
Yeah, it's absolute for food. But are there any really surprising top restaurants in these 3 wine regions that we're talking about that offer something really, really special?
So I really loved when I was in Amador County, there is a restaurant called Taste. It's women-led. Yay.
Yay.
And it was just like such a cute experience. It's more of high-end, but in a small town type vibe, right? But great food, great atmosphere, and it's right next to, the woman also owns a hotel called Stay, so Taste and Stay, which is kind of cute.
That's really nice. Well, okay, in Amador there is one winery for me that comes to mind, and for me it's Turley's, because when I was a sommelier, I used to sell a lot of their old Wine Zinfandel. So that is actually really, as far as I can recall, that is my experience with Amador. Would you say, because you've mentioned Ironstone in Murphy's, is there anyone in Amador for you that stands out that people should try?
So there's, I think it's pronounced Andis. Andis. I always say it wrong. But fantastic wines. They work with a Napa winemaker, but make fantastic wines from their estate fruit. Beautiful, beautiful tasting room. Casino Mine is also over there and newer. Oh, they have a fantastic food and wine pairing program, actually. Beautiful tasting room, too. And then Rombauer, which is in Napa, also actually has a tasting room over in Amador County, too.
Interesting. Okay, so then you can you can sneak in some Napa wines tasting over in Amador and not pay the same price. Their tasting
fee is cheaper.
There we go. We are after the sneaky tips, how to taste wonderful wines and not be too out of pocket. Also, Robert Mondavi is over in. Robert Mondavi's in Lodi, isn't he?
Does he have a Lodi location?
Yeah, he has Woodbridge Winery.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'm thinking it's interesting because as I was connecting for us to talk, I was thinking, gosh, what wineries have I tried? And I think just because these are areas that are not as well known, there is still so much to try. And iconic, Robert Mondavi has been making wine over there. That's got to say something. I think that probably must have helped Lodi's reputation. But it's just a case of actually needing to hunt out. You've mentioned Murphy's Ironstone. You mentioned a few for Amador. I've given you my one, my one and only. What about Lodi being the biggest? For you, do you have a favourite?
Yeah, so 2 favorites. There's Acquiesce Vineyards. So women-led brand, and she makes these esoteric off the beaten path varieties. I'm pretty sure they might be all white wines, or maybe I've only had white wines from her, but really cool, unique varieties that you don't typically see in the US. And the other one is Bokish. So that's a beautiful, beautiful tasting room. Again, great, fantastic wines. And then just to throw in a bigger spot that people might recognize, there's Michael David, which makes the freak show lines. Their tasting rooms over there too, and also big, beautiful, great stop.
Oh, amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
And actually, I think I would say, so if I understand right, if people want that kind of historic, the saloon style, go over to Murphy's and Amador. But I would say, surely, if people want to really get to know maybe old vines, Lodi could be the better area, just because I'm aware they have a save the old vine scheme. They're doing a lot of work to save these old vines.
Yeah. They also, I'd recommend, they have a wine and chocolate weekend every February. And it's honestly one of my favorite wine events I've ever been to. It's so much fun.
That's interesting. And actually, funny enough, I've paired a lot of wines with chocolate. I've not actually physically done Zinfandel, but that for I don't know what reason. But it's got such sweetness of fruit. And obviously we're not talking about White Zinfandel, which is a sweeter rosé. Zinfandel isn't typically sweet. It's just got that fruit sweetness, right? That's got to be possibly one of the best dry red table wines to go with chocolate.
Yeah, especially with like the lush, softer tannins that an old vine Zin has. It's really fun. And so it's like a passport style event where you can like choose your adventure, go to X number of wineries on the list of 50 or whatever they have. And every winery has some sort of like chocolate pairing, but they're not all sweet chocolate pairings. Like there's like mole and, I had something really weird last time. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was a chocolate covered grasshopper actually. And it was like salty but sweet, and then obviously paired really well with the Zin.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Like those earthy flavors and grasshoppers if you've ever had them. Yeah, it worked really well.
I have had them when I went to Thailand. I mean, is it Koh Sam Road? Anybody who's a traveler who goes to Thailand, you go to Koh Sam Road in Bangkok and you can basically eat any bug and insect and you pay for doing so. Why? But a grass-covered grasshopper might be... Actually, most of the insects I ever tried are very inoffensive. They're just crispy. Yeah. They could be anything, really. But so actually, it's almost like a deep-fried chocolate thingy with Bobby. I could get down with a chocolate-covered grasshopper. Nice. I like that they're pushing it out. They're, not just giving you a fruit and nut chocolate bar.
Yeah. It's fun.
I love that. So that's February, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, there you go. I love that. Zinfandel and chocolate. Actually, what would you search? What would you search to find out about this?
Lodi wine and chocolate.
Okay, simple. And for what I mentioned, everybody, it's savetheold.com, where you can read more about them saving the old vines, which I just think is fantastic because they have so many, 100-plus-year-old vines. It's fantastic. And anybody listening as well, Primitivo in Italy. If we're here over on the European side, obviously we're here to promote Californian wine, but Primitivo is the same grape as Zinfandels. Right. Is there anything else that you feel that we should know about these three regions? One question about grapes. We talked about a lot of this Italian. I know there was also Rhone grape varieties planted. Is red the big focus? Or is there still, actually, is it 50-50 with some white varieties?
Well, Lodi definitely leans into both reds and whites. Like I said, Equios makes a lot of off-the-beaten-path whites. I feel like in Murphy's and Amador, I've had primarily reds. There is some white wine production, but a big leaning into the reds, into Zinfandel, Italian varieties, and I feel like almost everywhere in these places also has like a port style wine, which is interesting.
Makes sense.
Always fun to try.
Warm temperatures. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. We'll slowly start finishing off. I mean, you said to me as well, wine is about storytelling. Wine is about memories. This is hopefully everybody listening. They're thinking about their next wine trip now, wherever it might be, wherever's accessible and easy enough to get to. But you said that one of your favorite memories was tasting is it Memento Mori? This is in Napa. Is this Napa?
This was Napa. Yeah.
Why was Memento Mori such an iconic memory for you when you think about a wine tasting?
I mean, wine is all about connection and like tying it into that moment, right? Like wine, when you taste it, it's affected by your mood, who you're with, the food, the atmosphere. And it was just the perfect culmination of all of those things. It was early in my Wine with Paige days. So it was one of my first like wineries, like upscale wineries I was invited to as a guest. I brought two of my best friends. It was pouring outside, and it was in this old like warehouse type space that had been converted into a tasting room. And so as we were sitting there, you could hear the rain on the roof. It might have even been like a tin roof with the way it was pouring down. And inside was just this beautiful atmosphere, beautiful, beautiful aesthetics, like these like skulls with butterflies and deep velvet, like very my vibe. And our host, Emily, sat down with us for private tasting. It was just the four of us in the tasting room. Led us through the wine, shared the story of everything, really worked to make that personal connection. By the time we left, I felt like I was best friends with her, to the point that I remember her name to this day, but I have not spoken to her since 2018 or whenever this was. But it was just so beautiful, and obviously the wines were fantastic. They come from some of the best vineyards in Napa. Yeah, it was just like the perfect culmination of all of those things.
Do you know, it's funny, I looked that up. I was like, what does Memento Mori mean? And it means, remember, we must die.
Yeah.
However,
which sounds morbid.
Yes. But it's the fact that because of that, we must live. I love what that means and how that feels. And I suppose actually it's about enjoying all of life's experiences. And that is something I think about vineyards. Oh, totally. And with vineyards and these beautiful experiences where they create this calm atmosphere where you can get all of your senses hyped up in the moment. I just think for anybody who has never actually gone on some, gone to wineries to wine taste, there's nothing more special, and the wine never tastes better than in that moment when you drink it at the winery. Never.
Right, because it's that perfect like culmination of all the things, like the experience.
Totally. Okay, right. Quick fire round to finish you off. Let's see. If you could only drink one grape for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably Chardonnay, because it comes in so many different styles, including bubbles.
Okay, that's an intelligent choice. Yeah, okay, fine. And who would be your dream dinner guest? Now, they can be alive, they can be dead, to share this bottle of Chardonnay or bottle of Blanc de Blanc sparkling.
Sand girl answer, Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance.
I have no idea what you're saying. I'm gonna have to look that up.
They're a band. I'm obsessed with them. They were my first concert ever, and I just saw them again last month, and I'm following their tour religiously on TikTok right now.
Okay, I have no comment. I will look it up and then I'll let you know what I think. I mean, I'll go and listen to the music then. Maybe it'll be something new. Maybe I'll fall in love with them. Okay. What's the most underrated wine region in the US besides the three that we mentioned?
I feel like there's so many underrated wine regions in the US. Everyone thinks Napa and Sonoma, but I'm really, really obsessed with Walla Walla. I think people in the industry know Walla Walla, but it's still this hidden gem to people who aren't super familiar with wine. It's up in Washington. Beautiful town, great food, great people, incredible wines.
Okay. Walla Walla, everyone check it out. And finally, what wine, I mean, I'm saying this at the end of the podcast, but anyway, what wine should our listeners pour while they listen back, whilst they listen for the second time through this episode?
An Old Vine Zin. Dealer's choice.
Okay, there we go, everyone. Get yourself some Old Vine Zinfandel. Thank you, Paige. It's just lovely to have a little chat with you. I will put all of the details in the show notes for everyone to follow you so they can learn more about wine and what's going on over in California.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me. This was so fun.
Thanks. Hopefully, Paige has inspired you to plan a visit to one of California's hidden wine gems. But if you're thinking about a secret gem in Europe, next week, I'm taking us to a tiny, picturesque region in Italy, the Lugana wine region on the southern slopes of Lake Garda. It might just be home to one of the best white wines you've never heard of, and it is also the perfect destination for your next holiday. Sunshine, stunning views, and a glass of Turbiana in hand. So make sure to tune in next week. But as always, a quote before you go. And Robert Louis Stevenson, a Scottish novelist, poet, and travel writer, once said, "Just as the best wines are made with the oldest vines, the best lessons are learnt from old friends." So here's to the friends who've seen us through every season, and to magical old Wine Zinfandel, which just gets more intense, exotic, and layered with age. Until next week, wine friends, cheers to you.